everyone, and welcome back to the Engen Play on Coach the Coach Masterclasses. Today, it's the third and final of our masterclasses. I'm Julia Stewart, and very privileged to be in the company of Gavin Hunt today. He's going to be sharing his ample knowledge with us. Gavin?
Knowledge, sure.
Yeah, his ample knowledge and experience with us. Before we get stuck into the chat with Gavin, just to remind you to please use the hashtag Engen Play Apart, Engen Soccer, and hashtag Engen Play It Forward on our various social media platforms like Twitter at Engen_soccer, at Engen.sa on Instagram, and Engen Soccer on Facebook. We want to hear from you. There's also an opportunity to ask Gavin some questions after this Coach the Coach Masterclass. Send in your questions in the Q&A box. And there'll also be a questionnaire at the end of this session related to this chat. You can answer questions and win some points and win prizes for your team. So very important to pay attention. Gavin Hunt is a 4-time league-winning coach. He's won every domestic trophy in South Africa. So when you talk today about moments of the game and team tactics, we're speaking to the right guy. Gavin, we're speaking to a lot of young coaches and young players who, unfortunately, we can't have the Engen Knockout Challenge this year, but we're trying to keep them engaged and motivated. So I suppose let's talk first then about how when they go onto the field of play next year, how do they decide how their team's going to play, tactics and all of that? It's a broad subject, but what are the influencing factors?
Well, a couple of, it's very difficult. Jules, I think you've got to know the players that you've got. Okay, I think you've got to know the conditions you're going to play under. What the pitch, if it's a beautiful green pitch, if it's a big bumpy pitch. I think also to know. I'm just really going back now. The sizes of the pitch, if they're big, if they're small, and then you've got to know what you've got in your stable, basically. So the players. I think what you do on the training ground, building up to a tournament, is very important. I think you need a few scenarios, because a tournament is generally, you're going to have a situation where you might have to draw the game in the tournament, you might have to win the game, you might be a player down. So all these scenarios, I think you need to paint the pictures before you actually go to the tournament. So a lot of work on the training ground where you're doing, I would think, overloads. Overloads being in attack versus defense. If you say you've got 18, 20 players, doing a lot of overloads, working your back four, your defense, and then slowly, gradually building up into the midfield, and slowly building up overloads going the other way, in terms of having more attackers and defenders. So that's what we call overloads in football. Yeah. I think coaches will understand that. So do a lot of 6 or 8 versus 4, and then 8 versus 6s. So you work in certain areas of the pitch, and then you progress it as you want to go into the attack as well. I think you also need to work a few scenarios, because in tournaments you generally might be down a goal and you're chasing the game. Yeah. Where it doesn't matter what team in the world, forget about now the football goes really out the window, and you're going to have to go maybe a little bit longer into a situation and force the game a little bit more. So have you got a player that can play in the box when you're forcing the game? Or you might be a situation where you need to hold the game, where you might be 1-0 up with 5 minutes to go, where you might need a striker up front who can run the ball out for you. So those are the type of scenarios you need to paint. I call it painting pictures in players' heads, getting players to play in a conscious state, but in an unconscious mind, where you're doing things naturally. And then you might have another scenario where you might be a player short. Send-offs with tournaments do get a little bit hectic and frantic in times. Or another situation where they might have a man down. Do you practice? I don't think a teams practice those things enough, really, because teams get into situations where you're playing against 10 men and they're sitting in, and you need to go, find a way to get through. And then you'll hear the coaches say, "Oh, well, they were just defending." Well, okay, don't worry about the opposition. You need to worry about our team. And I think it's more about what you do with your team. The other thing you need to understand as well, in a squad of players, I don't know how big their squads are when they go in these tournaments. Is it 16, 18? What's the versatility in the squad? Can players play in different positions at a push? Can they play with 3 at the back? Can they play with 2 at the back? When you're forcing it. Can they play with an extra defender, with extra in midfield? Can they play 3 in midfield? 1 up front, 2 up front. So these things need to be done over a period of time. How much time these coaches have had, I don't know. But that's what we would do, what I do on a daily basis, or in a pre-season of 6 weeks, working different scenarios, and finding out about your players that are versatile to play different ways.
it speaks
So it's
to
a bit
something.
long-winded, but
No, it's
in a
completely.
nutshell, I'm just trying to paint a picture.
It's completely what we want. It speaks to something that Coach Simpiwe Lulu was speaking about in the previous session as well, talking about habits, and everything becomes a habit then.
Well, I say playing in a conscious mind, but playing unconsciously. It's got to be automatic, muscle memory, and you can talk all day. And my opinion, I think coaches these days, the young coaches, there's too much classrooms, there's too much analysts and analysis in computers and blah 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 blah. I think you need to be more practical. I'm a practical person. I think if you take a baby and you tell the baby, don't do this, he'll do it again. But if you show the baby and you put his hand on the hot plate and it burns, he won't do it again. So I think children need to be shown and actually shown physically how the situation needs to be. I still do that, and I still think I've been all around the world. I was in Barcelona for 10 days, Ajax Amsterdam. I've been to top clubs, watching training, and the top players in the world. It's all muscle memory, and it's all instinct, natural instinct to react to a situation.
There's so much information out there. We
Sure.
all know how Pep Guardiola does his training sessions and how he does his tactics. We can see Jose Mourinho. We know we have access to it through all these videos online. But we're talking to coaches of Engen Knockout Challenge, and you're saying you've got to keep it simple. You have to show them. So how then do you advise them to set out a team for this challenge? When we go back into it next year, working with young players, is it based on the players? Is it based on your style? Is it based on the opponents? How do they do it?
Every coach has got an idea in his head the way he wants to play. I mean, I don't have 100 million to buy a fullback that plays the way I want to play.
Yeah.
So I've got to do with what I've got. You've got to play according to the strengths of what you've got in your squad. If you can operate and trade and buy, and then it's different, because then you're trying to get something that suits more your eye, that suits a way that you know that you'll get results. But in this type of situation, the tournament with young kids, they pretty much got what they got. Obviously, they've been hand chosen, I would think, and they've been selected quite extensively. But you need to play to what you've got. Me personally, I love to play with wingers, but now you see a lot of teams don't have any wingers. So we're going to say, right, well, how do we get the best results with what we've got here? So you might have to play with fullbacks more. We've got strikers that are big and slow, and we might have to play a little bit differently. They like balls to come to them in a certain area, where you might have a real quick striker. So it all depends around what you've got, I think.
How can you as a coach, and the coaches who are watching right now, how can they improve their team tactics, knowing that they don't maybe have access to all the best video analysis and all of those kinds of things?
Listen, I'm one of the only guys, I'm a little bit old school. I don't believe in too much videos and all this analysis, because I think it's all covering for lack of knowledge. I think, sorry to say it, I think it's for lack of understanding or knowledge of the game, when you're so much with a computer, because you're spending less time on the training ground. Because on the training ground, I can't go into a game you can go with a preconceived idea, but when the ball moves, things move. That's when you need the eye to say, hey, I need to do, maybe the winger needs to play 10 meters inside, maybe he needs to play 10 meters wider, maybe the striker needs to play on the shoulder more, or drop down a little bit more. But that's when the ball is moving. I can't tell you right now, without the ball moving. It's the same as a training session. You go into a training session with this old preconceived idea, with a whole plan, and then it's actually an absolute disaster, and things are not happening ways. So you need to readjust, thinking on your feet. And I think, yes, with analysis, you watch the opposition, they do this, and that, but they could come out with a totally different plan. I've watched teams, so I've done it that way. I've watched teams for 3-4 days, 3-4 games previously, and then they come and play 3 at the back and 3 up front, where they were playing 4 at the back. Now what? So when the game kicks, we go, oh, I've watched them now for 4 games, but now it's totally different. So now what? So you go, analysis guy, please come here, help me out here. No, you can't. You've got to think and say, hey, we need to make an adjustment here. That's where you need to know your players. Can they adjust to play narrow inside? Can they play wider outside? All this stuff. Can we play with a winger inside and a fullback on the one side? Those are all things that you can't teach them in a classroom. That you got to know and feel. And you learn by experience. You learn by, and obviously the guys who can do it better are the guys who will be more successful. Because you can't just, and I see it so often, they'll take a winger off and put another winger on. So they're making changes a change for a change and not really affecting the game. If it doesn't need to be effective, don't have to affect it. And sometimes big coaches feel they need to say something or affect the game. Sometimes I come in the dressing room many, many times. And I say, what are you going to say? And they say, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, thank you. And I walk out. I don't say a word. I've been many, many times. I say to the captain, just tell them what you want because just keep going. You know what I'm saying? Or the other way around, they're playing really well and you reverse psychology, go in there and actually blast them.
Yeah.
You know? So that you can't teach you can't learn that in a classroom. That's got to be a feel thing. And I call it smell. I walk in, I can smell it. You know, I mean, I've got so many stories where I've said nothing and we won. Oh, brilliant tactics. It wasn't about me. It was about the preparation we did in the week. And that's why I always say, you need to prepare in the week for different scenarios. I hear coaches say, the opposition coaches, oh, we know what they do. Oh, okay, all right. I'll actually phone you and tell you what you do. So I'll tell you today on Monday what our team is for Saturday.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you they haven't done anything at training to affect the situation. They'll talk about it. Oh, they play this, they do this, they're good to this. Okay, that's okay, we know all that. So what have you done in your training sessions that week to affect the situation on Saturday? That is the most important thing. So I think a coach, it's very important to go on to get educated as a coach in your licenses because they will teach you different scenarios. They'll give you so many different options to say, right, we're playing against a team that's got big strikers. How are we going to play against it? Do we play with a higher line, I think, so they're not going to get them near our area? Or we're playing real quick strikers, we're going to play with a low line because there'll be no space behind us.
Yeah.
So we want to give them a space in front of us. Those are the type of things that you need to practice from Monday if you're playing against a team that's got certain qualities. You know what I'm saying? So we'll play against a team that plays very narrow on the sides. So we'll play more maybe with a diamond in midfield, bring them inside, force him to go outside to areas they don't want to go. But that'll all be done in the week, in a unconscious way. Not too much explanation with the players, more getting them to muscle memory. Hey, boom, boom, boom. You know? Than to say, oh, we know what they do, which I hear, which is a favorite word in South Africa. We know what they do. I actually am very predictable. I want to be predictable, and I want to be very good at being predictable.
Yeah.
So you handle what you have to do.
What happens in that situation where you've prepared for a team to play 4-3-3 and they've changed something? How do you adjust in the game?
So I'll always say to you, we'll always have one of the two midfield players that can play higher off the axis. I know that, and I know that he's the one. So we'll say, right, they've got an extra man in midfield, we'll push higher off the axis, we'll drop our 10 into play with a double 8 or double 10 or something type of scenario, which I know we can do it like in a heartbeat.
Yes.
But I always say, let's make the opposition change to us, not us react to them. Obviously, it doesn't happen every game because we're not getting on the ball. They might get into those half spaces where we can't get on them or get close to them out of possession. But in possession, we need to force them to change to us. So I always try and work on that. But I'll always know in the team, going back to what I said to you earlier, that people have got to understand we've done this on the training ground. So the teams that I work with, there'll be 3 or 4 formations in a game according to the situation. Are we 1-0 up? Are we 1-0 down? Are we chasing it? Are they giving us problems in this and that? So we can change it, without making a change on the bench.
Yes.
Because when you're making a change on the bench, you're actually giving away an advantage later in the game, I think. This 5 substitution, I've always said football's going to go like American football. And people laugh at me. And it's happened now in the lockdown, where you have a break, you're going to make 5 changes. I think you're going to have a situation where you're going to have, my opinion, world football, we're going to have 15 minutes where we can do what we like. And we're going to bring on 8 attackers. And then you're going to have, it's going to change because I think football is boring, in my opinion. I think there's too many scenarios where you get all excited, you go to a game and you go away and you think, gee whiz, Ronaldo's only £300,000, he's only 5. That was actually boring.
So what do you mean, like a power play in cricket?
It's going to happen. It's got to happen. Football has to change. I think the offside lines are going to come in. Where offside line between the halfway line and the big box is going to be something like that. There's going to be power play where you can put on an extra 3 players or take off 3. Football has to change. Goals get bigger. It's going to change. I think there's too many boring games in world football. You go watch Real Madrid and you you've flown all the way from South Africa, you get there, 1-1, crap, rubbish. You know, and you go, my goodness, this is what it's about. So, I think, because for me, football, we got to work on a situation where the sponsors are satisfied. You got television is taking over. You know, the days of guys actually buying tickets and going to watch football is, you know, diminishing. You look all over the world because corporate is becoming so big. So I think it's going to change. My opinion, American football is coming, and a 90-minute game is going to take 3 hours. And there's going to be entertainment, and it's coming. The razzmatazz. I mean, it happened in America in MLS. My time. I won't give my age away because I'll tell you my time. When it started, there was power plays, there was extra players, there was. If you got 0-0 90 minutes, penalty shootout from the halfway line. You know, that it was Joma and Ace. They played. You know, David Byrne, those guys. That's what happened. They had halfway line penalty shootout. Brilliant. People wait till the end. It's exciting. There's going to be a result here. You know? So it's going to come. It's going to come. So, and also the football, those positions. You look at the football, modern footballer today. They're more rounded. They're not. He's a winger. They winger come inside midfield player. He's a striker. So Firmino at Liverpool, I'm just top of my head. What is he? Is he a striker? Is he a midfield player?
Same like Aubameyang.
Aubameyang. Yeah. He's a striker. Plays for Arsenal, Aubameyang. He plays in the wing.
Midfield, yeah.
So that's what's happening in football. Fullbacks, they're more wingers.
Yeah.
Centre backs, they must be this ball playing. You know. So you gain away from a lot of traditional things are moving already in the world of types of footballers, where you would have proper defenders, proper midfield players. Now they're becoming a little bit half and half, more all-rounded footballers. I think the game is changing.
Do you encourage coaches, especially when the players are younger, like the ones we're dealing now with the Engen knockout, do you encourage coaches to try and see how versatile players are by playing them in other positions? Also, do you train, for example, if your goalkeeper goes off and you have no one else, do you know who else? Although who else will be able to take the glove? So are those things you train?
If a goalkeeper gets injured, I say to anybody, so who plays cricket here? They say, I do. Okay, I'll say you go in the goals. Because they've got half an idea. So if you look at our Disky team this year at Bidvest Wits, we never had a striker. They're top of the league. They were playing midfielders. It was and I looked at it at the beginning. We spoke about it with the coach. I said, guys, but there's no, and the way the game is evolving is the way what they did. They played midfield players up front. They played wingers inside in centre midfield. It was like, but my God, when they went forward, they looked quite good. But you've got to get the passing patterns. Obviously, there's got to be a little bit more of a shape and a pattern. So I encourage footballers to be more all-rounder. So we'll always do a situation at training. We'll put the defenders up front, we'll put the strikers at the back. And the defenders normally win 9 times out of 10. They score more goals than the strikers. I always find good old number 9s have become good central defenders. Many of them have become good central defenders because now the game's in front of them. Where as a number 9, generally they were facing the team playing with their back towards goal. Now it's the other way around. You'll find old wingers, maybe lost a yard of pace, become fullbacks. Centre midfield players, maybe lost a yard, big and strong, become centre backs. Old number 9s become sort of a second striker. So there's a big push for this type of thing that's happening in football. I mean, you look at your team, Arsenal. I mean, I can't work out who's what sometimes, who's playing where, but they've got all these technically very gifted footballers.
Yeah.
So the game is changing, and I'm telling you now, it's going to change. People are looking for the technically skilled player and the gifted player, where the old centre half and the old fullback wasn't as technically gifted. Now they're really looking for footballers. I say your 2 fullbacks should be like number 10s because they're generally making the first pass. So the ball goes across the back, it's going out to the wide area, and then they're making the pass, so they have to be accurate with the passing. More than ever. So before the old fullback, stick it in the channel and chase it. Now you have to be accurate. Send midfield players. But still, the basics of being a footballer, what you look for in every position, I'm still a little bit like that. You've got to have certain qualities.
How do you make that decision as a coach? So, coaches, I'm just thinking about like Rivaldo Gutierrez, for example.
Yeah.
We knew him as a centre back all the time at Ajax, and now he comes in and he plays central defensive midfielder. How do you know who can make it?
I don't think he's a centre back at all. I think he's done the right move by playing him in midfield. I'll tell you why, because I don't think he gives you anything aerially when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
So he hasn't got that quality. Can he pass it? Unbelievable. Can he read it? Unbelievable. So I think by him, what Pitso has done at Sunday is a great move by moving him in there. Because I don't think he's a centre back. Because when he plays centre back, if I'm playing against him and he's playing centre back, I fancy ourselves against him. Because I think, he's not the best from a wide area of the ball coming in, because he's come from a upbringing of very technically playing out the back, where that'll get you so far. But there's times in the game when you need to do head balls out of your box, and as a centre back you need to head balls to score goals.
Yeah.
I don't think his quality is that. But I think by his passing quality, so maybe as a 6, or if you want to give it a number, to sit in front of a back four, I think is a great move, and it's given them an extra bow to their whole armory. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of the players we're talking to are quite young, the coaches as well. We'll be working with a lot of young players, and I'm just thinking about your experience in working with young players. The most famous one obviously would be Benny McCarthy. You worked with Dave Clayt as well, Dylan Shepherd, who we'll be talking to in the locker room talks a little bit later on. Rowan Human is perhaps the latest one.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. Coaching youngsters, how difficult is it? You're talking about all these attributes. How difficult is it to communicate those tactics and team tactics to them? What are some of the best
Obviously,
options?
the most important thing is what sort of development have they had.
Okay.
And I think if they haven't, that's why, if you look around, so who's been the best development in South Africa over the last, 20 years? There's been 1 or 2 clubs, or 3 clubs maybe. The rest, you really got to question the development. And what is development? The younger the better. People say, oh, he's a development. How old is he? No, he's 23. I say, okay. I came through development. I was a 17-year-old, made my debut in the PSL at 17. And all the coach said to me was, you're good enough, don't worry about your age. You're good enough and play. And I had a good development, so I came through and I played at 17 in the PSL, first game. So I if they're good enough, they're old enough. That's my theory. Obviously, the physicality, are they physically up to the demands of the situation? But then you handle him differently. Benny's the example. Benny came to me, he said he was a striker. I said, my friend, you couldn't strike a match. So we're going to play you on the wing. Why? Because you're frail. He was very frail. I mean, he's a big boy now, and he bulked up. But he played him on the wing. He got 28, 29 goals in the first from a winger. By just being, because you had the touchline to protect you. You play right wing, you could. But up front, things are coming from behind you, and then we gradually built him into, it's like Dylan Shepherd. He was a centre midfield player all day. At 17, I kept playing left back. So now the game is in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Teach you how to defend, because those are the qualities you need to understand as a footballer. It doesn't matter who you are, a striker. You need to have a defensive mindset out of possession of the ball. And then he progressed to a fantastic midfield player.
Yeah.
Rowan, same sort of thing. I had just Bebo. They went to Pirates, came to Supersport, also gave me his debut. We let, to be fair, Lebo Kakana go to Celtic, because I said, obviously we're struggling, money, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Sold him. And I said, well, this kid is good enough. We put him in, we won the league. In Lebo Kakana's place. And look where Lebo Kakana is today. I mean, he's a legend in South African football. So those are the type of decisions you make. Lyle Kay. I brought him from Old Mutual. He replaced Dane Clayt. Dane Clayt was a 5-time league winner, went to Pirates. Now got Lyle Kay at 17. Put him in because I felt he had the ability to play left wing, and he did very, very well. And then, where he is today. So I can think of many, many players like that. So if you're good enough, you're old enough. But development does count to understand what's required in that position.
And how do you do that? Is that just on the training ground, or?
Your eye will tell you that. Your eye will tell you that. Watch them train every day. Watch them work every day. See what their attitude. Because people these days, which is a big problem in world football, we look at the ability, fantastic ability. What is their attitude? What is their desire when they lose the ball? What is he like when the team goes a goal down? What is he sulking? Is he miserable? Is he spoilt? Is he, has he got the desire to want to win? So those are the type of attributes you look for in a player, besides their ability.
Yeah.
But I can think I won't even name them. I've had all these ones we've named the successful. What about the ones who failed?
Yeah.
So because I believed in them and the attitude to play without the ball, because that's the most important thing. can you play without the ball? You know, and see what the reaction is.
That leads us to quite nicely to the next topic, which is moments of the game. I mean, there are different moments and different phases of the game. How do you explain it?
You know, if a team concedes a goal before halftime, they say, "Oh, that was a what did they say?
Critical phase." Yeah.
Somebody used that word from overseas now. I mean, everybody uses the word. So critical phase is one first minute to the 90th minute for me. That's a critical phase. Critical phase, obviously, people use this terminology when they're coming around your box. Football's a game of percentages. If you keep the opposition outside of our box, and we're more in their box, we got more chance of winning than they got of winning. Yes, that's how I look at it. So it's percentages. So it's critical, whatever you want to call it. So the concentration levels really need to be good all the time. But every moment is a critical phase for me, as I see it, because that final pass or that tackle or that press or that is an important moment, because that press on the halfway line. I mean, you heard Jose Mourinho on the weekend. What did he say? What is the first thing he says? My strikers not pressing, they're lazy in their press. And then the team come through me and they have a shot at goal. So where does it start there? You know, it starts in the front from that type of situation. So every moment is important. Yes, the static moments are sometimes in South Africa are very important, because if you watch South African football players switch off, the ball goes out and there's a big sort of loss of concentration, loss of whatever, throw-ins. You know, in South Africa, I think there's a lot of, players can't even take a throw-in and play professional football. They throw it like this, or it's like, they bounce it, they don't throw it at the right time, the right speed, you know. So those are the type of things that obviously come from development, but those are critical things. It's like having a corner, and we've all got this movement pattern. We're going to do this, but if the delivery of the ball it's a critical, you know, it's a critical situation. So terminology, 1 to 90 minutes for me is critical. Obviously 95 minutes, but every little breakdown of the game. How do goals get scored? It's normally on a turnover, loss of possession. Because if your team is really set, it's very difficult to break me down. But once we come out and we give the ball away, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So that turnover, when the ball gets turned over, I call it turnovers.
Yeah.
So if we get the ball and we give it away,
Yeah.
what is our reaction to the turnover to stop it at source, then to let it come right into our goals? It goes about percentages again.
Yeah.
Keep the opposition further away from the goals. You got more chance of winning, and they got less chance of winning. So it's percentages.
Yeah. Critical phases, I guess, when we spoke before, and there will be a lot of coaches, as I keep mentioning, who working with young players, and so to train them on how to react when conceding, or just after scoring, actually.
After scoring, you see a lot of goals in world football. Yes. Teams they score, then they concede, because you know, players, the right back, they score by your left wing, and the right back ends up running 80, 90 meters to congratulate the guy. Fantastic. But then by the time he gets back to his right back position, he's blowing through all parts of his body, and he's forgotten about, I actually need to defend a little bit. You know. You'll generally find when a team scores and the opposition centre, the strikers don't press anymore. They just sort of let them have it, you know. And if you play against a decent team and they get at you, you know, I'm not saying you must score and just run back to the halfway line, but guys, please, my friend, if you're the right back and they score by the left wing down there, running 80, 90 meters, think about what's coming next. You know?
Moments of the game, which is our kind of main topic, we also think about subs. So you were saying sometimes you just got to let them play, sometimes you've got to let things play out, but for the coaches who are watching, how do you decide? I
see in world football, and if you watch a team 3-4 games, you'll say, here it comes. The 60th minute, the ball goes up. What is it? A meal. What is it? The subs need to be used for impacting, for, against, and other reasons. Maybe injuries. Run the game down. Blah 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 blah. I'll give you an example. So, if you 1-0 up, and obviously it's a big game. Well, every game is a big game. And you need and the team is coming at you, and generally you you want to get the second goal, but the team is attacking you. So what do we need up front? We need to get out. How do we get out? We need maybe a faster striker, to run the channel for us so we can play, so we can turn the defense again out. If we 1-0 down and we're really in the opposition's box, what do we need? We need a good box striker, somebody who's good in the air, who's physical, things can happen. So those scenarios, if their left back is coming too much on us, maybe we need to stick a right winger out there to stop him coming and make him think twice about, is he going to come? Because he's been coming for 70 minutes. Maybe we need to stop it now, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. So it's all these type of things, It's all these stuff. If they down, they stick another striker on, maybe we need another centre back, to give us a little bit, and we play with our sweeper in front and behind, coming into midfield, dropping out. If their wingers are crossing the ball, maybe we want to go a little bit tighter on them, so we go a little bit man to man, and then play with the extra number. So it's all those type of things, and that's, you can't preempt those things. You can't go with a plan. Oh, I'm going to bring this one on. I'm going to bring that one on. Yeah, you do, but it never works like that. It never works like that. So sometimes it's a feel. Sometimes it's game understanding. What needs to be done happen. But if you go with a preconceived idea, you're dead. Don't go like that. Oh, I need to give him a game. Yeah, when you're 5-0 up, I'm going to give him a game. You know what I'm saying? And 9 times out of 10, I look along the bench and I go, nah, I'm not putting any of them on. I'll leave the rest out there. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes.
You know what happened to me?
What?
Well, it didn't happen to me. I was playing a game, and the coach, I won't tell you the name of the coach, and I won't tell you the player. He told the player to warm up. Warmed him up. He said, what size are you? He said, size 8. He said, give me your boots. I'm better than you. Put the boots on, and he went on. The coach. So crazy. Anyway, that's a long time ago. Brilliant story.
Wow.
And he was better than the player that was on. Yeah, that's it. It'll never happen today.
So sometimes the game is not nil, and you make a call, and it comes up for you. And I'm thinking about your recent game in the league, played Kaizer Chiefs.
Yeah. So,
winner.
So I'll talk about that game. I thought the first half we were very good, but we push, and I can see it's not coming. So now you're going, okay, it's not coming. The second half, they're gonna come. I don't tell the players that, but I know it's coming. And to be fair, in the second half, they were coming. They missed an unbelievable chance.
Yes.
They should have been 1-0 up. But we could have been 1 or 2-0 up in the first half, but people don't see that. They see the miss.
Yeah.
And then we make a decision. Do we want the point? Or do we say, let's give ourselves a chance? Debatable. Do we put the guy on? Do we not put him on? I feel they're so high. They're really on the halfway line because they're pushing us now. There's spacing behind them. Let's put this guy on who can run the space. He runs the space, we score. Fantastic tactics, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't work every week. I'm not believing me. I get more wrong than right. But I need to get more right than wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you get it wrong plenty times. Times.
And in a knockout situation like the Engen knockout challenge, you have to take those kinds of risks, I suppose.
Well, your time is shorter.
Yes.
So, and also it's a situation because they're playing a league. So we need to win. So first game, I think generally it'll be sort of, we'll play and try and win the games. As you go on to the second and third game in your league standings, you'll say a point is good here, or we need to win. People say, I think you've got to be brave when it comes to those situations. And you're going to lose some, and you're going to get hurt, and you say, shit, I couldn't have done that. But you've got to be brave both ways. And don't see it as a negative. I think you need to be brave both ways. Do we want to hold the game and defend it, or we want to attack it, or so those type of things, in the moment, you need to make that call.
And then finally, Gavin, as we close, just in terms of motivation, when you're doing the Engen Knockout Challenge, when you're doing any knockout, whether it be junior or professional football, you were saying sometimes you don't say anything in the dressing room. Sometimes it does call for it. How do you know when to motivate, and how important is motivation?
This is just me.
Okay.
If I must motivate a footballer to play football, then he must rather go get a job, become a plumber, carpenter, electrician, go work in a shop or in the bank. If he must be motivated to play football, then you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Yes. Does a certain player need a little kick where Yes. I always say you need to work mentally or sometimes with them. How do you do that? Sometimes they're doing unbelievably well. You come and you absolutely tear the skin off them to shreds, and they think, like, what's wrong with this guy? Or the other way around, where they're really doing badly, and make a few adjustments here and there in a very calm manner, and then you'll get a reaction. But players have got, I always say, even at youth level, the team needs to run itself. And people don't see that. Coaches don't run teams. And the coaches that tell you, so you're trying to tell me, Liverpool, Jordan Henderson doesn't run their team. He runs their team. Jordan Henderson runs the team.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what Arsenal lack. They don't have the leaders anymore. You need the coach is there to set how we get strategy, blah, 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 blah. But the guy that motivates the team is inside the team. The people, the players. There's certain standards that you need to keep. And if the players don't live by those standards, it's not good the coach standards. I'm telling them the same thing every week. What about internally? So when you see them fighting, like I saw the Spurs take the other day with Mourinho and the players, yes, because they care. If you don't care, you can't play football. So you've got to have the care inside the team, and sometimes it takes time. But and the ones who care more will go for maybe less ability, and that's what you need to work on. But the coach, it's nothing worse than me saying, "Oh, that coach is a good motivator." Then I shouldn't be in football. Because you say the coach is very clever, pick a player, but don't tell me I must be a motivator. No. Motivation is, yes, be positive. We need to be positive, but be also, there's a fine line between arm around them, picking them up, pushing them down. There's that type of thing, which is, players sometimes get very lazy because sometimes the scenario, the whole, what's going on, sometimes they think they're bigger. But the game will always be bigger than the player. And the game will always be bigger than the coach and everything else. And when I'm gone, you've gone, the game will still be here. You know what I'm saying? And I always say, pay your dues towards the game will reward you. And that means being self-motivated, living right, doing the right things, training hard, asking questions. These days, players don't ask enough questions. Challenge me. Because if you challenge me, I'm going to be challenging you. But don't just let me challenge you all day. Challenge me. Ask me, why? Why are we doing this? I'll tell you why. And don't ask me why you're not playing, because I'll tell you why as well. Because you're not doing X, Y, Z. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's important. That type of thing. So going back to your original question, motivation. If you're not motivated to play football, look for another job.
Just thinking about the youngsters quickly, and we are fresh out of time, but you mentioned something, putting your arm around them. How do these coaches with very young players, how do they balance between being perhaps hard on them and giving them that little kick that you mentioned and putting the arm around them? How did you balance that with young players?
Well, I came through a different era because my era was, if I had to carry on the way my coaches carried on with me at 17, my God, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. The modern day youth is very soft. They play on their phones, they play games. We played rugby, and we had to play football. We played in the streets. I didn't have a television. There was no television when I grew up. There was no cell phones. We rode a bicycle 10 kilometers to training. These days, they get in taxis and everything else. So today's human being is much softer. The food has changed. Everybody's eating fast food. I never saw a hamburger in my life. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was no McDonald's. There was no, maybe was there a Wimpy? No, there wasn't even a Wimpy in my day. So the food has changed. They become softer.
Yeah.
So I still think there's no excuse for handling them with a bit of firmness.
Yeah. Because
they need to understand if they want to make it. And the ones who can accept it and react to it. So I'll give you an example. I could never play for Arsene Wenger. Nice guy, talking to me nicely. Not for me. Give me Alex Ferguson. That's my time. Because when you go at me, I would say, bugger you. I wouldn't say what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I'll come back at you and I'll show you how good I can be.
Yeah.
Where the modern day guy needs maybe a little bit more Arsene Wenger. Oh, my boy, this.
Yeah.
No, not for me. You need, because that's if you want to make it to the top. If you want to be an amateur footballer, you can be told how good you are, but play amateur football. But the guys who make it to the top sometimes need to be told the truth. I need to be told the truth. Nobody likes the truth in life. In South Africa, nobody likes the truth. And people need to be told the truth sometimes about this is the way it is. And if we had a nation, I think we'll have a better footballing nation. We need to be told the truth about how you need to live, act, boom, boom. I'm not saying you can't have a good time in life. If anybody has a good time, it's me. But I know where the border is. I know I need to be at training at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. I know that I need to be doing this, X, Y, Z. So the youth today, the softness gets me a little bit, I mean, the TVs and phones and iPads and I can't work with a TV remote, let alone work a phone. I struggle with a TV. Where do you switch this thing on here? You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? So it's made us lazier as a nation. Well, the world. It's made youth lazier. It's easy. Just go on the internet. You can find things. Me, I do. If I wanted to go to someone's house, I took a street map with a book. Looking for. Now you just Google and sends you here. Go left, go right.
Location.
Yeah. And like Trevor Noah says, why are you going to Woolworths or why are you going to the spa when you should be going somewhere else?
Yeah.
You know that joke. It's just the softness is there, and you can see. I see the youth coming into the teams today, and I say boo, and they crumble. When you said that to me at 17, I was. But that also goes back to the culture of the club, the culture of the team. If there's a good culture, they come into a system. They know, what we need to do. The time, timing, this, that. How we expect to play. There's no grey area of those things, and I think that's the youth need to understand it.
So that's all we have time for, and the bottom line is to all the coaches who are watching, a little hairdryer treatment never hurt nobody.
I mean, the old days I get 6 of the best. Nowadays you can't. I used to go in 3 pairs of pants and underpants and get 6, but I wouldn't. Next day I'd come and go again. These days you can't touch them.
I don't know what to say to them.
Well, you can't say anything because I think kids are brought up too soft. Need a little bit of, on the backside a little bit now and again. I'm not saying that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm saying within reason, whatever the situation is, whatever the circumstances are, that and the ones who can get through that, they become better people on the other side. And we try to make better people. Yes, footballers, but we try to make better people. We try to make a better nation, disciplined, respect, care. How many people care about the streets and the rubbish and what things? How many people care? You got to care. If you don't care, if nobody cares, then you can have a situation. They become bad footballers and bad people. And what are they going to produce when they have children? So I think that's the most important thing I see. I always say when these guys leave me, I want them to be better people. Obviously better footballers, but better people, and go out there with good messages and try and. That's how I was. I came through that school.
Yeah. And on that note, we end our session today. Number 3, the final in the Engen Play On the Coach Master Classes. Just a reminder, there is a Q&A session with Gavin after this. If you haven't sent in your questions, do so. And all of these videos will be available on the Engen Knockout Challenge website as well as YouTube. Remember, you don't need any data for the Engen Knockout Challenge website. You can access all of those videos and all of these words of wisdom from guys like Gavin. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Julia Stewart. It's been a pleasure to host you.